Have you ever wished you could eavesdrop on a conversation with a millionaire? My name is Michelle Thompson. I'm a retired project controls engineer and business professor, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this podcast. I get to ask the questions that everyone else wishes they could. I'm going to find out exactly how they were able to build their empires through automation and outsourcing. And I'm going to break it down in a way that helps you build your business to run on autopilot. Don't miss out on Automate to Dominate. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Automate to Dominate. Today's guest is Zachary Babcock. He is the owner of Underdog Empowerment and the top-rated Apple podcast. So Zach actually went from doing 5 years in prison to becoming a guest speaker with some of the top entrepreneurs in the world. So Zach's goal now is to help all other underdogs out there level up in both business and life. Zach, welcome to the show.
Yo, what is up, Michelle? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you on as a guest. Can you give us just a really quick background about how you went from prison to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. If you want to unpack, we can. But, we all got long stories. I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri. My father died when I was 7. Never had a father figure after that. And so I always wanted to fit in with the quote unquote cool kids or whatnot, but it really wasn't that cool. And I always wanted to fit in, and I would just do stupid. Can you cuss on your podcast?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. This one's, I already know that this one's going to be labeled explicit.
Right on. Yeah. I was doing stupid shit to just things that were outside of my character to fit in and be accepted. And, that was bad, and that led to unfulfillment and just always feeling like I wasn't enough, and started doing drugs. By the time I was 19, I went away to prison. That's a long story in itself. Did over 5 years, did 4 years flat the first time, came home, wanted to stay out, got a job at a bar and grill as a cook. And then I got a job at this cool place on the sales team at a clothing store. And then got a promotion third day there, and then 2 days after that, they fired me because they discovered that I was a convicted felon. And so instead of just keeping my chin down, finding other opportunities, I threw a pity party, got a DWI because I became a raging alcoholic, and I went back to prison just 20 days before my twin sons were born. And Michelle, that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I made a decision to turn my life around right then there in that jail cell. I ended up doing 8 months, came home, got into entrepreneurship, struggled for over 4 years online, bashing my face on a brick wall trying to figure this out. And then last year, broke through in a major way, and then built a 6-figure business in 8 months. And here we are today.
That's absolutely incredible and amazing. First of all, that you didn't give up 4 years into banging your head against a wall, right? How many of us would have done that? But I just want to put out there, if you guys have not had the chance to listen to Zach's opening episode on Underdog Empowerment, I would strongly recommend it. Just, go to Apple, Google Underdog Empowerment, and the very first episode, Zach gives the most emotional, most powerful podcast opening episode I have ever heard. So you guys definitely are going to want to go there and download that one and listen to that one. I was just blown away by his story. And it's kind of funny because you kind of stumbled into podcasting, right? You didn't really want to be known as the podcasting guy, but it kind of happened. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is a funny story. You're so right too. And real quick, just to piggyback on what you just said, it's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of people tell me they love that first episode because of that emotional roller coaster that it goes through. But I literally 2 days ago, I listened to that episode and then my 200th episode that just came out recently. And oh my God, I was cringing listening to the first one just because of how much better of a podcaster I am now, because that comes with anything, repetition, you're going to suck at first. I just thought that was a good thing to put out there, just because I know a lot of people never get started. So they're like, I don't know, or whatever. And, but yeah, as you go, you keep getting better. But there you go. So listen to Zach's first episode, and then listen to his 200th episode, and see when you start your own podcast how much better you're going to be, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a nutshell, break it down in simple layman's terms. Exactly. It's like you're gonna suck at first. It might not even suck. It just it's gonna suck to where you eventually get. But yeah, I really though I didn't want to be the known as a podcast guy. I even though I was having success and broke through, I still was like, yeah, I'm gonna pivot from this eventually and do more. Just because like I don't know, I'm really into like psychology and I love the marketing. I'm super passionate about the podcast stuff, but I also know I can help people like even on a wiring tip of like stuff that's holding them back, limiting beliefs and all that good stuff. So I was looking at that, but I fully stepped into it. I'm like, here's one thing I learned: you can't try to cast the net too wide and be all things to all people, because then you'll never ever get any traction anywhere and you'll never succeed. And I was like, man, I found my sweet spot. Like the podcast is where I'm hitting at right now. I got the results to back it up for my own show, and we delivered consistently to all of our clients with 100% success rate on all the things that we do as far as podcast marketing goes. And so I finally stepped into that 100%, switched up the messaging on my website and the social medias. This was back in December, just a few months ago at the time of this recording. And I'm telling you what, you go a mile deep first, and then you could start casting the net a little bit wider as you got to carve out your piece of the marketplace first. And you got to, and that's the only way to really get that true traction, to really start being able to do all the things that you want to do. So yeah, the cool thing though is that I'm actually really passionate about it. And I love talking about podcasting and stuff, and it's pretty cool, and it completely changed my life. So yeah, I'm
So
happy.
why do you think that podcasting worked for you versus regular affiliate marketing stuff?
I'll tell you exactly why, Michelle. Like literally, anytime I tried to collaborate with anybody before my podcast, I was the ex-convict turned entrepreneur afterthought that nobody gave the time of day to. Nobody gave me a chance. Anytime I tried to collaborate people, it was like a joke, and people just were counting me out and not wanting anything to do with me. And so it was out of that pain and frustration, because I was pissed, right? I was like, I'm not gonna be held back in this box or whatever. And I decided to launch the podcast, and I launched it. I got it ranked on day 3 on Apple. And then the next week we had Billie Jean's marketing on the show. And it's just,
Holy crap. That's just awesome. I love that guy.
yeah. And it's just been crazy growth ever since. And it literally has been the thing that helped me break through and build my brand and my business. And so I literally went though from 1 week of nobody wanting anything to do with me to interviewing celebrities in 1 week, all as a result of the podcast.
Wow. So how do you market your podcast?
Yeah. So we call it the podcast penthouse mechanism. It's a proven process I developed. And here's the thing too, man. If you're ever learning podcast marketing from someone and they don't produce these results that they're teaching you, if they're not doing it for themselves in their own show, I would be very, you question anything, period. If from anybody, you always question it, and even question your own thoughts and actions, but highly definitely question if they're not doing it themselves. So after figuring this stuff out, because like for me, it was hard to grow my downloads for over a year, and I'm able to help my students skip that learning curve of what I had to go through. But after figuring this stuff out, we developed this system, and it consists of 4 pillars. The podcast penthouse mechanism. One is launching and getting it ranked. That's one pillar, and there's a bunch of different specific strategies and stuff that you do about making that happen. And that's, once you get that, then you're able to leverage your ranking. You're able to get people excited about your show. You're able to become more discovered on Apple, because now you're showing on the rankings and people are coming across your stuff. And you're also able to attract higher level guests, because now when you pitch people, you can be like, hey, I want to have you come on my top rated podcast. Just sounds a lot better than, hey, can I interview you on my podcast? You know what I mean? And there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into it, but that's the first pillar. Second pillar is downloads growth. This is the most important pillar, and I'll explain why. But you got to grow your audience, and if you're just sharing it on social media and asking the guests to share, you're gonna see stagnant growth like mine, where you're just like not growing for a year straight, and you're like, what is going on? I'm putting out killer content, but it's just not going anywhere. Oh, that was so frustrating. But you gotta grow the audience, and this is the most important pillar, and I'm gonna come back to it after I explain the other 2. And then the third pillar is what I call celebrity podcasting, where you're interviewing super high level guests, industry experts, celebrity type guests, and you're becoming one in the process, and you're positioning yourself in your podcast in the marketplace. And now by aligning yourself with like people like Grant Cardone, Andy Frisella, Neil Patel, you name it, all these rock stars, right? Whenever you sell your own products and services, you're just not trying to break through the noise stuck in the sea of idiots of all these other experts out here. You're the celebrity expert because you've aligned your brand with these power players, which just makes, if you have an offer that's legit and converting, it makes selling it 100 times easier. So that's the third pillar of it. And then the fourth pillar is what I call big money podcasting. That's monetizing. That seems to be what a lot of people want to get into right away. And you can monetize fairly quickly with a podcast, but you have to have an audience, and you have to go through these things, and it's the last for the reason, because by first getting ranked, that's part of positioning stuff, then growing your downloads, which is the most important piece, so you actually have an audience now, and then positioning yourself with celebrity positioning and aligning yourself with the brand, it makes selling so much easier. Now, last thing to it, the reason why downloads, your big reach podcasting is what I call it, the reason why that's the most important is because it feeds, each four of these pillars, they feed off each other. And it's just a bunch of simple things done consistently all the time. But if there's one that you got to rank higher than all others, it's the downloads growth, because that directly impacts where you're going to rank on Apple. You got a bunch of people downloading your episodes, that's directly going to impact the type of high level guests that you can invite on your show. You got a bunch of people downloading your episodes, that's going to directly impact how much you're going to be able to monetize. More people that hear your offers on your podcast, the more sales that you're going to make. So it's definitely most important, hands down.
So you talked about your students, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you have just created a course that teaches everybody how to crack the podcasting nut, right?
How do you know about that course?
Because I took it. Yes, the student. But no, for real. I know that you just created, like, I was kind of like a one-on-one, one-to-many type, but I know you just created an online course, and I've been able to go through it, and it's just killer. Can you tell us a little bit about that course, and somebody who wants to get into podcasting, what they could look forward to?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate that too. So this course specifically, top rated podcasting, is focused solely on the first pillar. So I ran this program, either one-on-one consulting or one-to-many group coaching, for over a year consistently. It was a $5,000 package, filled it up consistently month after month. And then we developed done-for-you services like post-production, for the busy entrepreneurs that can't focus on the editing, the podcast, show notes, all this other stuff that goes into it. And also booking services, where we get high-level guests booked on your shows and get you booked on other podcasts. And we developed this whole entire podcast marketing agency. And through running this program and getting my finger on the pulse of podcasters, my ideal customers, right? I learned that, if I'm going to create a course where it's not so much per se hands-on, where I'm doing one-on-one consulting, I could be like, hey, do this right now, and let's move on to the next thing, where it's not so much hands-on. I got to break it down into the four pillars, and I got to ascend you the right way. Let's get launched first and get you ranked. And that's what's going to set the foundation. It's going to build your initial base of your subscribers on your podcast. It's going to get you ranked, and it's going to start getting you more discovered. And then we start moving on to the other pillars. So it's an A to Z guide, step by step, showing you every single thing that you need to know as far as not having an idea about podcasting, all the way to getting it launched and ranked on Apple.
Awesome. So for those of you guys listening, I'm going to drop a link to his course in the podcast notes. So if you're looking for it, and if you want to hook up with Zach, go ahead and check out those podcast notes. But Zach, you've done a ton of interviews, right? At this point, like over 200. What do you think is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you on a podcast?
Wow, that's a good question, because there's been I'm trying to think of it. I'm pretty sure there's going to be something funnier that I can't think of right now. But there's been times like where my kids would walk in like on a video podcast like this. Obviously, you know, people that are listening on Apple, they can't see it, but you know, you might be repurposing this to YouTube or whatever. And we're jamming on a podcast, and my kid that was just turned 5 at the time, one of my twin boys comes in and starts having a conversation with me. And I'm like, hey, I felt like, I don't know if you ever seen it, but there was this news anchor thing on CNN or something sometime, and his kid came in and he tried to act like he wasn't there and like was like maybe if I be quiet, he'll go away. I didn't do all that, but I just felt like that guy at that time. It was pretty funny.
That's hilarious. So I was talking to another gentleman, Ozil DeBastos, and he's another top podcaster. And he said the funniest thing that ever happened to him was it was like awful but funny at the same time. So he's like in this story, and this guy's like crying, like super emotional what he's talking about. And somehow he tripped and fell off his chair in the middle of the podcast, and he like had to get up and pretend like it didn't happen because this poor guy's like crying on the other end. But yeah, I can just imagine. So
That's crazy.
I know, right? That's going to be an episode, the top 10 craziest things that happened on podcast.
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. People just want to tune in just to hear all the different stories.
Right? Oh my gosh. So getting a little bit back on track now, how have you been able to monetize your podcast? How has that worked for you?
Yeah. So here's the deal with monetizing. It's there's a bunch of different ways that you can monetize your podcast, and the strategies to do it are all cookie cutter strategies, or the tactics are all cookie cutter tactics, right? However, it's not cookie cutter based on every single person, because every single business and brand is uniquely different. It is. So like affiliate marketing was probably a great way to monetize your podcast. You know what I mean? Actually, my affiliate marketing would be for any podcast just because of the nature of the platform. So selling a physical product would be like a great fit for someone, you know, because if it's their business model, they might be able to sell their physical book or t-shirts or whatever. But if your business doesn't sell physical products, then you're not going to be able to monetize in that avenue, right? So to give some context, I'm gonna tell you exactly how I monetize mine too. But it's okay if I share a client story?
Oh yeah.
Of okay,
Yeah,
so
please do.
I got to work with a client of mine, and I'm not gonna say her name, but we got to work together one-on-one, and her business is creating systems and for network marketers, which is awesome because a lot of them need that, right? And so she builds systems out, and she has this membership program is our thing that she pushes everybody to get them started, and then eventually leads to more done for you stuff. And so the specific strategy that we came across with her, because, you know, you could do affiliate marketing, you could sell your own consulting services, you could sell your membership programs, you can do there's literally like a Patreon, you can do live events, you can do paid speaking gigs from your podcast, all these different avenues, right? With her specifically, what we mapped out was, okay, we're going to build your audience with you. We're going to grow your downloads with your perfect customers. So how do we do that? Okay, so go out and interview the top network marketers that have these huge downlines, because everybody in their downline is your perfect client. And you interview them, and before the actual interview, you get them to verbally agree that they're going to share the episode on their social medias and email lists. That was like a key part. There's other parts of the strategy, but that was a key thing right there to get them verbally agree. Because when you verbally get somebody to verbally agree, they're more likely going to do it. And that's straight out of the book, Influence by Robert Cialdini, our human need to stay consistent with what we commit to publicly. I'm not going to go into super detail about that, but so she did that, and now she's building her audience with her perfect clients, and then on the show, she directly plugs all the time a reoccurring plug. It's like 30 seconds or less. I don't know the exact plug, but it's like, hey, if you're struggling with X and you've been trying to get to Y, but Z is holding you up, then you need to go check out A, because this is going to alleviate all this and do some things you probably didn't think it was going to be able to do for you, and you're going to be able to get there a lot faster. Go check it out at website.com/whatever, you know, and so she's constantly pushing them in with that reoccurring plug. People need to hear that probably 1, 2, or 100 times before they actually take action, but it's constantly subconsciously they know that that solution is there, and when the time is right for them, then they take action. Some people are going to be ready right away, and that's just one way. And then anytime she's doing interviews and talks, a specific topic gets brought up, then she can, yeah, this is what we do in this program, boom, 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 plug it again. And then it's also listed on the show notes. So that's just one way that you can monetize a podcast. So for me specifically, sorry for the long-winded answer. Is it okay if I keep going?
I love the long-winded answers. You go ahead. You got the mic, man.
Right on. I just try to be real respectful because, you know, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but I've had guests, really great people, but you ask them a question, they'll give you a 20-minute answer, and you're like, dude, we're supposed to have a conversation here, a dialogue. You know what I mean? But yeah, so how I specifically monetize, what I like to teach in the beginning, because your downloads are not going to be crazy unless you have a huge audience and a huge brand already, but most people don't. You just got to build it up, and that's part of podcast marketing. The most important piece is the big reach podcasting. So in the beginning, though, what you can do, what I like to give the example is, you can indirectly monetize your podcast and you can directly monetize. Directly monetizing your podcast is like, hey, here's this affiliate product. It's going to help you do this. Go check this out at here. Boom. And then people hear that directly through your podcast and they go check that out. It's directly monetizing. Indirectly monetizing is where it's at, and in the beginning for sure. So indirectly is like, you build up your positioning, you get ranked on Apple, first step. You start growing your downloads and you start interviewing right away high-level guests, aligning your brand with these high-level people. Now your people in your audience on your other social media platforms and email lists see that you are aligned with these power players. And then when you drop your offers, they're 100 times more likely to go jump on them if you have your offer dialed in. That's a whole nother story. You can't just sell something that the marketplace doesn't want and need. It's got to be legit. But if you have that part dialed in, it makes it selling that 100 times easier. So now let me give the example. Directly monetizing, you're going to make more money in the long run once you build up a large audience. So if you go look at John Lee Dumas or Pat Flynn, people that get, 1 million downloads per month, they have a large audience. You can even go to John Lee Dumas's website, and in the corner of his website, he shows his income reports. And just off of EO Fire sponsorships alone, he kills it right there, because he charges $6,500 for you to come on his show and talk about your stuff, which is worth it because it's over 1 million downloads if it's the right fit, niche, and all that. So he's making so much money off of that alone. And then anytime he plugs an affiliate product, millions of people are hearing that and going to do that. So over time, when you get a large audience, yes, directly monetizing is where it's at. And that's why you should start direct monetizing now, even when you don't have the audience. And over time, you'll see those numbers grow. But in the beginning, though, the monetize indirectly, focus on that. And how I've done it is I've proven these results for myself for over a year. And then I started running this offer after I was teaching people everything that I've already done with my podcast, and then got those results. And I positioned myself, and I ran an organic post on Facebook. Is how I built a 6-figure business, saying, boom, listing out the offer, writing the copy, and then directing people to hit me up in the comments or a message, and we'll get on a call and we'll make this happen if it's a good fit. And that's how I indirectly monetize. And I also do it through affiliate market. Like, I got a bunch of different streams of revenue coming in from the podcast, but that's like the main way right there.
Something you said was killer that I never really thought about before, but it's almost like, with affiliate marketers, they always say the money's in the list, right? And they're talking about their email list. But the exact same thing would be true if you have attracted your ideal customer to your podcast and they're listening. That's another list, right?
Yep.
It's exactly the same thing as having an ideal email marketing, an ideal client on your email list. Same thing, having attracting an ideal client to your podcast, which is, amazing, because so many people are just like, oh, I just need download numbers. I just need download numbers. And it's not about that. It's about attracting the right people that are the right fit. So that was awesome.
You made a really good point there. I kind of want to piggyback on it. So at least, I don't want to say in every single industry, but Definitely the internet marketing industry and a lot of other industries. Email marketing should be like priority number one. It's very vitally important to grow your email lists. And the reasons why there's so many, we're not going to get off into it, but one of the main is because, these social media platforms or algorithms are limiting your reach, and they could shut down any day and you don't have that audience anymore. So by getting them to your email list, as long as they stay on your email list, they get that notification every time you put out an email. Whether they open it or not, it's another story too, but you have direct access to that inbox. There's no algorithms limiting that email from going out. Your deliverability rates, that's another story too. And that's, we're not getting into email marketing, but it's ultra important, right? So think of podcasting as your lead generator for your email list that leads people to your products. And think about it like this. Like, you guys are listening to this episode right now. You almost feel like a part of this conversation, like you're a fly on the wall, like you feel involved. And by listening to Michelle all the time, you get to really know, like, and trust her. You get to hear her thoughts, views, and opinions all the time. And you're either going to love and like her, or you're going to be like, I don't like Michelle, not listen anymore. Or you might not like her, but you really like the topics to talk about, so you're still listening. Either way, though, it's attention, though. And it's building that relationship. It's a perfect nurturing system for you to really to develop. It's better than email marketing as far as nurturing goes, because when you get to hear people's the tonality in their voice, the voice inflection, all that stuff, and the stories and stuff, that really builds that relationship powerful. Then you can have plenty of episodes where you have a lead magnet that helps people get a specific result that you drive them to, and it builds your list. So think of podcasting like a lead generator.
And just to piggyback, we keep piggybacking, but it works out. It's working out. So one of the things that you said too was, people get to know, like, and trust you, right? And if you think about your podcast, right, Underdog Empowerment, one of the things that I wanted to ask you as a joke was, did you think you could record an entire podcast episode without saying the word fuck, right? But it's like, your audience, right? That you're either going to attract or repel, and that's your ideal audience, the underdogs, right? And so that's perfect for you. Me, I don't tend to, well, unless I'm really mad. If I drop fuck, you better run. So, but no, that's so huge. So, but I think it's so important to stay true to who you are, because when you first started out, right, you were kind of like a wuss because you were afraid of, like, hurting people or turning somebody off, right? And then you were like, at a certain point, you're like, fuck it, this is who I am. I'm the underdog, and this is where I'm going to put my stake in the ground. And if you don't like it, tough crap, And that's when you really started taking off, right? Because you were genuine, you were real.
Yeah, you hit it on the money right there. I even used to wear suits back then. And there's nothing wrong with wearing suits, but that's not my style. I got a long beard and body full of tattoos, and it's not me, you know what I mean? And I was doing all these things because I was thinking I had to be someone that I wasn't in order to have success. And this is personal branding 101 right here. And this is for your podcast too. You don't, like, for me, saying fuck or whatnot, that's who I am, because I say it a lot in my real life. That's just who I am or whatnot. And like you mentioned, you don't, and so that's you. With your podcast, the best way, because you got to get really clear on who your audience is and who you're serving. And the best way to do that, because it's personal branding here, we're talking about a podcast. You're the face of it. You're the voice of it. People are coming to the show to check you out. They don't necessarily have to like you, but they're coming because they want to hear your thoughts, views, and opinions on the topics that you're talking about. So in that case, you got brands like Apple, McDonald's, Walmart, Coca-Cola, the largest brands in the world, just regular brands, and they can create this imaginary customer avatar and then be the ideal, morph into that ideal to serve that avatar. They could be whatever, they could change it up. But when we're talking about personal branding here with your podcast, or in business in general, if it's a personal brand, you can't make up some imaginary customer avatar and then morph to be the ideal to serve that avatar if that ideal doesn't align with who you really are. And so the actionable step to that is to select your audience to be who you were yesterday or who you were just starting out or anywhere in between, because you're always speaking to someone you already know and understand that you've been through, and you're able to help bring that person forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes to speaking. Like, I absolutely hate this saying because it drives me crazy because people do it and think they have to do it, which is fake it till you make it,
Oh
right?
man.
And that drives me nuts, right?
You know
Because
what?
I'm
You know what
like, just be real. Holy crap! Like, not everybody has it figured out, and it's okay. Like I was very open about on this podcast. I don't have it all figured out, but guess what? We're going to figure it out together, and I'm going to show you where I fell on my face, and I'm going to show you where I succeeded. And I think so many times people feel like they have to be something that they're not or portray something that they're not, when you know what, that is like a huge way to repel people and they don't even realize it.
You're so right. And I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so important. And oh my God, dude, like I hate that word too. Fake it till you make it. And here's where they're faking and lying, and that's not cool. And some people do it with good intentions because they actually want to achieve their dreams and help people or whatever it is that they're doing it for. But at the end of the day, if you're promising something that you can't deliver on, you're scamming people flat out. And so I don't have respect for those people. You gotta understand that and be. And I love that you said be real, because I hate the word authentic. So everybody's like, oh, be authentic. Like, no, just be real, dude. You know what I'm saying? But here's the caveat to that. Or here's where people take it out of context. You got to act when you're not successful yet, when you're looking to get there, when you're achieving your goals. And we're all not successful because we all have a goal that we're reaching for that we never achieved before. So in that case, you got to act as if you're that person already to step into it, right? Believe it in your mind, be certain about it and confident in yourself. And in your mind, knowing I'm already there. It's just, and we're getting into kind of like the woo woo, rah rah kind of stuff that I don't really do into, but it is important though, to have that mindset and to attract those things, but to also back it up with the action. But it doesn't mean to fake and lie to people and promise something that you can't deliver on.
Right.
Like you said, I don't have all the answers to this, guys, but I'm sticking my neck on the line every single day. I'm documenting the process. Everything I learn, you're going to learn with me. And I'm bringing everybody on the show that does have answers that we don't have yet. That's being real. That's, people can jam with that.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, there's a lot of people where it's just bad advice that's been given. They've been, a mentor told them, well, just fake it till you make it. And so they think that's what they need to do. And, for everybody that's out there that got that advice, I'm really sorry that you got that advice. Stop. And here's a story that Zach probably won't tell you, but I'll tell you, is that he and started out consulting, and he felt like he wasn't legit yet. And so he put this post out and he shut himself down. And he's like, no, I haven't earned it yet. And he just got super real with people and got dialed in. And that was when he started to get successful, was when he was just real and let go of the fake it till you make it. And, I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a huge part of my story too. So like I said, I had good intentions, right? I wanted to achieve my goals so bad and wanted to be able to provide for my family and not, be, labeled as this ex-con that's going to go back to prison any moment or whatever. And well, I had success with the podcast early on, but at this point in time, I hadn't put my finger on the pulse of how I could best solve a specific problem for a specific type of person yet. This was really early on. And so, but the podcast was blowing up, right? And so I attracted this guy that had this program that had 20 million in revenue and had over 1,000 successful graduates. And it was on lead gen, customer acquisition, and scaling a business. It was legit, right? This whole thing, right? And so we repurposed this program and started putting it out to my audience with me being the face of it. And we were bringing in actual clients. And like you mentioned, I felt like a slime ball, a douchebag, imposter. I felt all these things, right? Because I'm sitting here trying to achieve what I'm teaching people by teaching it, and it was just ass backwards, and it didn't align with who I am as a person, and I didn't feel right with it. And so this was super, super hard, but I decided to make a post on social media, on my Facebook, on Christmas Day of 2018. And I was like, hey guys, this is what's going on. But, I feel like this because I haven't achieved this yet myself, and I just can't do it anymore. So I'm pulling the plug on it. I'm going back to the drawing board. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue doing my podcasting. I'm going to continue doing affiliate marketing, and I'm going to come back to the marketplace when I got something that's legit. And that was scary because I was putting myself out there. One of the biggest fears next to death is being outcast from the tribe. We're social animals as humans. And I'm putting myself out there like that. But as soon as I did it, it was so liberating. It felt like the weight of the world being lifted off my chest, and I felt good about myself. I knew I made the right decision. And on top of that, I had so many people reach out to me like, dude, that's a breath of fresh air. I respect the hell out of that, man. Thank you for being real, dude. And that let me know, that confirmed it all, that, it was the right thing. So it wasn't easy, but man, I'm telling you what, that was the best decision I ever made because it led me to what I'm doing now, podcasting, finding something that's legit. So I don't know if you're going through that yourself, but I'm telling you, the best thing you could do is to really be real. Don't use the word authentic. Just be real. Be yourself. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. So this podcast is like automate to dominate. So I try to extract as much automation out of all of my guests as I can. So can you tell me, you said that you have a system set up where, other people do the podcast for you. What does behind the scenes look like? When you're done with a podcast, how do you hand it off to your VA, and how do they edit it, do the podcast notes, get it up? How does that work?
Absolutely. So, that's a great question. I'm glad you answered it because it's a perfect fit for the show. So, with podcasting, all right, there's a lot of work that goes involved with putting out a podcast. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's good. You'll be like, no, I'm not. I'm going to keep it real with you and tell you that, hey, if you're going to get into podcasting, if you're going to do it yourself, there's a lot of work that goes into it. All right. Let's run through that. You got to record. You got to set up the interview if you're interviewing somebody, for one. Get it booked. Then you got to record the episode. Then you got to edit the episode. Then you got to add the Apple tags afterwards. Then you got to upload it to your hosting service so it goes out to Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, all these places. Then you got to write the show notes to it. And you definitely, those are the things, like, technically you don't have to do the show notes. You don't have to have a website to do podcasting, but if you're going to do podcasting, you should have a website and a place to direct people. But those are like the must-haves, right? And then you got to think about all the other stuff that if you want to share stuff on social media, create the audiograms, the social media sharing images. You got promotional emails that go out to your email list. You could go real deep and get it transcribed on Rev and then put that onto your show notes so it helps with SEO purposes and ranking. You got timestamps to make it easy. People can click on your show notes and bring them to a specific part in the episode. There's a lot that goes into that. And early on, it's okay if you're doing it yourself. I did it for myself for a year before I built out the agency and had this part automated for me. But there comes a point where you shouldn't be doing that anymore. And you need to automate these things. And you need to focus on more of the high level task, building the relationships, selling, whatever it is, the high level stuff that's really going to push your company forward versus editing a podcast episode. Your time could be spent better elsewhere. And so that whole process, what it looks like for us, for me specifically, so we offer where you legit record the episode and then you send us the audio files and the photo of the guest if there was a guest, and that's it. And we could do everything else for you based on the package that you want. But we also have a sheet where if you want a little bit more creative control, you have that. It's optional. You don't have to, but if you want to title the episode, you can. We'll do it for you, but if you want to have that creative control, you can. And so the process with me, I do have a little bit of the creative control as far as titling the episodes. Everything else I finally passed off, but I do still title my episodes because that's something that I'm skilled at in copywriting or whatnot, and it's something that I still want to have my finger on. But the show notes, finally passed that off to our content writer, and she's amazing, does an amazing job at it, and does even a better job than what I can sometimes. But that whole process, I upload it into Dropbox. We use Google Drive for all of our clients because that's just something easy everybody can use and it's free. But I have a Dropbox paid account where I have all my video assets from like all these people that I interview or whatnot, and other things. but I upload the files into Dropbox, and then I have a little sheet and I title the episode and put out the date that it's going to go live. And we have a little podcast schedule of mine. And that way my team just goes through and does it for me or whatnot. And I don't even have to think about it.
And so what is the process that how does she come up with the content? Does she listen to the whole podcast episode and then comes up with the notes, or how have you trained her to do that?
Yeah, great question. So how we do it is we have 3 people on the team, and we have a podcast production specialist. That's the main person. And that does most of the heavy lifting. And then we have our content writer, which is really important. And then we have a graphic designer. Now, the graphic designer is only there one time. They build out the template of your social media sharing images, and then the podcast production specialist can use that template and just change the words and insert photos, because it's really easy to do after that. But they get it to look nice. And so what that process looks like, our project manager will will assign the clients to one of the podcast production specialists. That's like the team lead. And then they get that. And what they do is they go through and they do the editing, the adding the Apple tags, the uploading to the hosting service, your show notes, all that stuff. But after they get that episode, though, they send that to their content writer. And the content writer, like you said, will sit there and listen to it. And what they do is they listen to the whole entire episode, and any links or resources that you mentioned, they make sure to add them into your show notes for you. And then once that part is done, then the podcast passes back off to the podcast production specialist, and they upload everything to the show notes.
Awesome. And then you also have a fourth vein in that you have somebody who's going out and tapping into people to get guests on your show and stuff like that too, right? You're not doing that yourself, are you?
Yeah, great question. So absolutely. So after what was it, almost 2 years of getting people booked myself on my show, I developed a pretty good scripts of landing high-level guests on my show and also getting myself booked on other podcasts. I'm not going to say I perfected it, because I haven't perfected anything, because if I say I perfected it, that means I can't get any better. So I always like to say I optimized it. That way, there's still room for growth. But after optimizing these scripts of how we pitch people, or how I pitch people and got them on my show, or how I would get myself on other shows, I decided to automate that part of it, because that's another admin level task. It's really important, but my time could be spent in a ton of different other places than getting people booked on my show. And so after I did that and got that part automated for my own, and seeing how much more high-level guests we were getting now that I wasn't doing, and I could focus on other stuff, I was like, yeah, we need to offer this as a service as well. And so what we do is we get people, high-level guests and I got like connections with a lot of high-level guests that I have on the show, and a lot of times they're looking to get on other podcasts. And I say, hey, I promise I'll bring you legit people. It'll be a win-win-win for all parties involved. They'll get a kick-ass guest on their show. You'll go on a podcast that's got an audience, and we get commissioned for that, for making that connection or whatnot. So we got stuff like that in place, but we also got the pitch where we actually go out and get other people that I haven't talked to yet on these people's show. We also get you booked on other podcasts, which is going to help you grow your podcast as a result. And we can even pitch reviews to your own audience. We're getting people that already know, like, and trust you to check out your podcast and leave you an honest written review.
And spoiler alert, if you guys are listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I need those scripts, it's inside his course. So you're going to want to get his course.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you it works because I've used them, and don't ask me to give them to you because I won't. So you need to take the course. But it legit works. It's crazy how well he's perfected this, that, you send out a couple key things and you just get responses. It's amazing.
Appreciate that. Is it okay if I spoil it and kind of tell them like the first pitch or whatnot?
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Gold nuggets. Let's go.
Because I mean, even if we sat here for like 3 hours, we still wouldn't be able to cover every single thing that's inside that course, right? But it's so simple to get people booked on your show. Here's the deal. What's the reason why most people don't get people booked on their show is because they're not asking. It's literally it. I just started off by asking and being myself and keeping it real. You know what I mean? And here's the deal. Whenever you're pitching, we're talking about like a high level guest coming on your show, like a celebrity type guest, right? Because there's different pitches for different types. But if we're talking about like a super, like you're trying to get Grant Cardone to come on your show, right? Or Andy Frisella or something like. Most people, not most, but a lot of times people will send these people an autobiography in the pitch, and what's going to happen is that person or the gatekeeper, whoever's opening up these emails, a lot of times it's the gatekeeper, they're overwhelmed. They get so many requests a day, and if they open up this email and it's like an autobiography of your story or whatnot, they're going to get anxiety, freak out, and not even read it because it's too long, too much. So get straight to the point, because these people appreciate that. They're down to business. They don't want to hear all this other, just like, hey, I want to interview on my top rated podcast. You're a perfect fit for my show. Let me know if we can make this happen. Talk soon. Literally, that's it. That's like not word for word the pitch, our first pitch that we send out, but that it's like pretty damn close. And that first pitch is the overwhelming majority that converts all the pitches. Is just a short, sweet to, you want to come on my show, because these people want to come on your podcast. They want to go because you have an audience, you have a platform, a media source. You're doing them a favor. That's the mindset you got to get into. These people aren't doing you a favor by coming on the show. Yeah, it helps you out, but you're really doing them a favor by sharing them with your audience. So you got to rewire your mindset that way whenever you're pitching people.
Yeah, and it works, guys, because I did it yesterday. I was on a previous podcast with Jeff Hunter, and we started talking about Dan Henry. And if you guys don't know, Dan Henry is like the online course god. And guy makes crazy amounts of money. And so I just like pulled up Messenger and I was like, hey, Dan, I was on a podcast with Jeff Hunter, and, we were just talking about you. And, I think you'd be a really great fit for the show. Is this something you might consider? I said, you don't know me, but you will. And he got back to me and he's like, yeah, sure, I'll consider it, and sent me the link to how to book it. And it was that simple. I just asked, and I was like, hey, would you be willing to? And it just so happens that he's got another course coming out that he's looking to, let people know about. And so, yeah, so he wants to promote. So because he wants to go on my, my podcast. And so, spoiler alert, couple weeks from now, we'll have Dan Henry on the show.
That is so awesome. See, and it was literally that simple right there. And that's kick ass. That's a huge win right there. By the way, when you have him on the show, it's a funny story, because I got to interview him, and when I made a post that I was going to interview him on my Facebook, there was a bunch of people, because I put his like this little story or whatever, from Pizza Boy to 7 figures, 8 figures, and all that stuff. And there was people on there like calling him a scam or whatever, and he got on there, and there was like a big war, and it just like, it was awesome because it was like a lot of people, it like drove so much engagement or whatever. But we got to talk about it on the podcast. It was pretty funny, his response to that. But I like Dan. He's a total asshole, but he's also a good asshole. You know what I mean? Like he's like,
right. He just doesn't care.
He's legit. Yeah, he's legit. I dig Dan. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. So, of all the people that you've gotten to interview, who do you think is the coolest person you've interviewed to date? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's easy for me though. It's Robert Greene, and the reason why, I've got to interview, man, a lot of awesome people now. It's like people that you'd probably know. It's probably in like the 30s somewhere. But Robert Greene, New York Times, 6-time New York Times best-selling author of his psychology books, really famously known for the 48 Laws of Power. The reason why I say that, I've always said, if I could be personally mentored by anybody in the world, without a doubt, hands-on, it would be Robert Greene, because to me, I don't know any living organism that understands human nature as deeply as this guy does. I'm not saying he is the number one. There might be somebody else that understands it more, but like, he just, man, I resonate with him in his book so much. And so when I got to interview him, that was like a dream come true. It was so awesome, because I'm all into psychology and stuff. It's like, it just fascinates me, and I'm a total geek and nerd when it comes to that. So yeah, it was definitely Robert Greene. It was a really awesome episode too.
Wow, that's awesome. So, if you could pick 2 people who have helped you in your journey to where you've gotten today, I'm guessing Robert Greene would be one of them. Who would be the other?
The top two, Robert Greene is definitely one of them. But the top two people that helped me that had the most impact in my life. Number one is my mom. She's no longer here with us. She passed away like right after I got out of prison, like 10 months after I got out. But she got to see me turn my life around, which was awesome. Um, Her hands down, my mom, like always, she was always in my corner, even through all the shit that I put her through. And she would always, dude. I had the confidence that I have today. This is crazy. We even talked about this on the episode with Robert Greene, and I learned about this through talking with him. But I had the confidence I had today because of her, because she used to spoil me with affection, which is, don't spoil your kids with material things, but spoil your kids with affection, constantly encourage them, build them up. Every single day, she would always tell me you could do anything you put your mind to. And she believed in me before I even believed in myself. And now, as a result of that, I have that confidence. And Robert talks about how that connection between the mother and the son is just like the father and the daughter. It's a really special, unique relationship. And if the mother spoils the son with affection like that, you know, building his self-esteem up and whatnot, they will tend to be really confident people in life or whatnot. So I got lucky in that aspect by having a mom like that. And then the second person would be my personal trainer, Bart. He's more like even a life coach, even though I hate the word life coach. But dude, that dude has gotten me like dialed in, like from a mindset perspective, from mental toughness and mental fortitude perspective. I let myself go when I came out. I came home from prison a little bit over 5 years ago. I was beast mode, six pack, all that, ripped up, all this stuff, right? And then I quickly became an entrepreneur, and I immediately started prioritizing business over my family and my health. And that's upside down. That's not the right hierarchy. You know, I can't enjoy my family and I can't enjoy my business if I don't have good health. And so I got with him, and I got I was like 227 pounds down to 185 right now. But I just posted a picture about it. Crazy. It's like a night and day difference, but not just from the health and fitness perspective, just from a mindset, all this stuff. And it carries into my business, carries into my relationship, all this stuff. So definitely my mom and Bart have had the two most major impact on me in this world.
That's awesome. So if
Thank you.
you ran into a entrepreneur and they were just starting out in their journey and you had to pick one book that you would give them to read, what would it be?
If they're just starting out in their journey, is it okay if I say two? Because one's a personal development book and one's a business book.
Yeah.
So like from the personal development standpoint, it would be A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And the reason why that book will literally transform the way you look at things, it will change your perception and your paradigms on life. He was a prisoner in the Nazi death camps, and was brutally tortured, people dying left and right around. Like, it was a horrible experience. It made my 5 years in prison look like a daycare. It just like was crazy what he went through. And then he's a psychiatrist and whatnot, and he breaks it down in the second half of the book of finding that meaning in all that suffering. When he went, I'm not going to spoil it from you. Oh my God. It's not, you read some books that just have some golden nuggets in there, but then you'll read a book that completely transforms your life. And that's hands down the greatest book I've ever read in my life. So that would be from a mindset, which is more important than the business perspective. And then from a business perspective, if you're just starting out, like right now I'm reading the book Traction, but that's more for people that already got a successful business going, probably are making 10K or more a month. And it helps you to actually start building a real business. But just starting out, man, I would say either Robert Greene, any book by Robert Greene on psychology, or Influence by Robert Cialdini, because it's going to help you sell. And in the beginning, everybody's trying to focus on the branding, like what does my logo look like, the fonts, the color and stuff, versus actually going out and selling shit. And in the beginning, it's like a car, an engine in the paint job. The engine is sales. It's what's going to feed the business, and then you can get the cool paint job. You know what I'm saying? The paint job ain't going to get you anywhere unless you have the engine running. Same thing with this, focus on sales. So I would read any like psychology book that's going to help you develop and craft your offers and give people what they want and need.
It's like this is totally off topic, but I just have to throw it out there. It's like those guys you ever see guys with like the beater cars, right? Like there's more Bondo on the car than there is car. And in the back, they have like a $6,000 stereo system. And it's just booming and shaking the Bondo off the car. That's exactly what I came to thought when people are like so worried about, their branding. They've got like the $6,000 subwoofer in the trunk, and yet the car is falling apart.
Yeah, you get your branding right once you got your marketing and sales dialed in. Then you could start, dressing yourself up right. But you got to get the engine going first. You got to be able to get there.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. So, last question. You ready?
Let's get it.
Okay. Somebody who watches this video and is like, oh my God, I have to have an Underdog Empowerment t-shirt. Where do I get that?
That's awesome. It's and it's so funny. I never push the apparel. It's just there for people that want to rock it. It's on the only place where it's at is on my website, on a podcast, on the recent podcast episodes in the show notes. So you just go to underdogempowerment.com and then you'd click the tab that says podcast, and then you click on one of the recent episodes, and it's in there. It's like if you wanna rock it, you can. But it's funny. I've never had anybody ask me that before.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Shoot, you need to be selling hats and shirts like crazy, because you got yourself an awesome movement going on. So,
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just a quick reminder, guys, go to Apple, type in Underdog Empowerment, and listen to the first episode, and then listen to the 200th episode so you can see the difference. But definitely listen to the first episode, because that one is killer, and it will change your perspective on everything.
Appreciate you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate you being on the show, and we will catch up with you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Automate to Dominate podcast at www.awesomeoutsourcing.com/podcast. My name is Michelle Thompson.